talk about video game, little known game, slightly
game
revolutionary. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is
Oh,
the 12th Final Fantasy VII game.
Final. Actually, though, which one is it?
It genuinely, it's like the 13th of the Final Fantasy franchise. But if we
So it's Final Fantasy 713.
yes, if you're counting them all, like Snowboard Kids and Crisis Core.
Which we, of course, can.
But what you should count it as is Final Fantasy Remake Part 2.
Yeah.
Of 3.
I've seen people say that this game, they say it jokingly, but also not so jokingly, that this game has some Yakuza DNA in it, because you can just do all kinds of shit.
Oh, it's got so much goofy side content and, like, main content. Vibey Yakuza-style quest. Side quests in this game, massive improvement over Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, good.
I played 7 Remake without doing a single side quest because, like, none of them looked interesting, and I was right.
Oh my god. I 100% that game.
What the fuck?
God,
That is
wow.
the least Joe thing I've ever heard.
Sorry. Not 100. Like,
But
I
you
did all
did-
the quests, side quests,
That's
Okay.
crazy.
and all the missions. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. I don't know why I did it. I think the point being was that, like, because I knew you weren't doing it, so it's like, I feel like obligated. I should do it so I can take on this content.
In this one,
Man, that was,
a good way to
yeah.
handle it is, like, do half the side quest in each region, and you'll get, like, a nice sampler course, because they're very good. There's one where you're in a town, and the cool thing with the side quest here, they actually one-up Yakuza in this instance, where, especially Yakuza 7 and 8, the JRPG ones, where you have these party members and you bond with them, but you have to do the bonding event separate to side quest. In the side quest, it's just Ichiban or Kiryu. Here, they do this clever thing where every side quest is tied to one of your party members, and anyone who knows Final Fantasy VII knows that that party gets big. It's 9 total by the end. And by the end of Rebirth, you have the full party, though 2 of them are guest characters. But they're, like, you still get that sense. It's like, oh shit, we've gathered up all the crew, and, like, next game we'll get to play as Sid and Vincent as well, and get, like, everyone's playable.
Damn. I heard people were hyped about Vincent, so it's
Vincent
kind of shocking.
is very cool. The thing is, I never even got Vincent in 7. Vincent and Yuffie are optional party members in original 7. I never even saw Vincent. So he's by default my least favorite party member. The other least favorite would be Yuffie, the other side character. She's great in Rebirth. I'll get to that in a second. So every quest has a party member that you go do the quest with. So, like, this quest is a Cloud and Red 13 quest, and this one's a Cloud Tifa. There's, like, some cute ones where, like, Cloud and Tifa stumble upon these kids that, like, they go into a pond that turns them to frogs, and they play around as frogs. And you're like, what the fuck? But you gotta remember, getting turned to a frog is a status effect in Final Fantasy VII. So they just, like, took that status effect and be like, this is a thing that exists in this world. We're not going to sugarcoat it. You can get turned into a frog, so why not make a quest?
And everyone knows about it. Like, it's just a normal thing.
It's real. It happens.
You can go to the corner store and pay a guy a nickel to turn you into a frog. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Well, you get anti-frogging things are sold in your general store because it can happen, you know? There's fiends. So you go there, like, you turn into a frog, and your whole party has different, like, frog forms, and you get little frog attacks to fight. And once you beat that, the kids are like, no, keep playing with us. And then Tifa and Cloud, like, they're flirting and they're playing, and you play Fall Guys as frogs with the frog kids. It's, like, it's great. It's cute. Like, there's a quest where you follow around a dog called Salmon. Donkey talked about this in his video if you watched it. It's a Cloud Barrett quest. During the quest, Barrett is talking about how difficult it is to be a dad and watch his little girl one day grow up. And he's like, I don't want to be the dad that stifles my little girl's growth. But at the same time, I'm afraid I'm turning into that kind of person. And all the meanwhile, you're chasing this dog to this banger dog theme that exists exclusively in this quest. Like, they made a music track just for this quest. And when you get into battles in that quest, there's the battle version of the dog theme that they didn't have to do all that. Like, they just put so much life into the quest, both through Barrett's dialogue, but also, like, the little touches, like the music, makes them all very memorable. However, the later sequences, the later maps, Gongaga and Cosmo Canyon in particular, are a pain in the ass to traverse. Traversal in this game is kind of poopy in general. Your chocobo clashes into everything. Like little rocks, it has no jump button, so you have to like really wrangle that thing. It's very annoying. And those particular regions are where I kind of like tapped out of doing the quests. I did like a little bit of the overworld stuff. Like they got some Ubisoft kind of like checkpoints for you to go get in the open world. That's all great. I'll talk about the combat as well. I raved about Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat. This is even better than that. And this is what Tyler wanted Final Fantasy 16 to be. Because this is a fucking RPG, bro. You are making builds. You're like...
Is it...
It's the same... It's the same as the previous one, Joe.
Okay.
But like...
I just wanted to... I really like that, so I wanted to make sure they didn't like...
It's even better. Like they added team-up attacks, both as like... So you have like... offensive and defensive team-up attacks that you can do for free. It's just basically like Tifa has no way to fight stuff in the air, but one of her team moves is that either Cloud or Red 13 will launch her into the air, and then that's how she can get in the air and do air combos. Or Cloud can bounce Barrett's bullets and hit enemies. And those are just basic additions to their movesets. But then also you build up like team supers, like Chrono Trigger, Dual Techs. Every pair has them in some way. Some of them are so fun. Like, they really, really cooked. I love this battle system so much. They added a dynamic difficulty, which is what I played on. That's like, the game will scale with you, which a lot of people don't like in RPGs because they like over-grinding. But it's perfect for me because no matter how little or how much I grinded, the game will give me a good challenge, which is... I thought it was really well executed. Yeah, like, I think... Tyler would really like this system because it's an action system, Tyler, but you're building up ATB gauges that you freeze the game to input in a RPG command. Like,
do I have to know Final Fantasy VII to play it?
You don't.
But you really should play the first one.
No, like if it's gonna stop you from doing it, period, don't. If it's one or the other, like you'll be fine. It's just that the game plays with your expectations from 7. And Remake, if you mainline it, goes by very quickly. It's a very smooth game. This game is a lot longer.
I thought you meant play the first Remake. Yeah, not the game.
Yeah.
I may consider it whenever you play Mass Effect.
I'll shake your hand right now and download Mass Effect right now.
I won't because I've got other priorities to finish.
You're not willing to deep dive.
No,
Howard's man.
I have to beat Elden Ring.
You do. No. We'll talk about this later.
Dude, I'm just still amazed at the grip Final Fantasy VII has on gaming so many decades later.
Now,
down by the balls.
There's parts that I was dedicating this conversation to you, Bradley. You played 7, right? You're the only guy who's played 7 original, right?
This thing, I played 7. I think I was like
ago.
fresh. I was fresh out of like high school. I was like 18, but I played it and I was like, I see why this rocked everybody's fucking world when it came out.
When I played 7 in 2018, one of our early podcast episodes, I announced that the story super held up. I was actually really, really invested in the story of Final Fantasy VII. The gameplay is to this day probably the worst Final Fantasy. It's just very simple.
Yeah, all the quality of life stuff they added in the I think the port that you told me about, where it's like, oh, you can either speed stuff up or choose not to run into random encounters. I'm like, holy shit, I wish I had that when I was playing.
No, yeah, this is why my Final Fantasy adventure has been fun, because on the older ones, I just get to like cut out a lot of the bullshit. My problem with Rebirth, and something that like people are glazing the fuck out of this game. Glazing is a new term, by the way, in the internet. I
know. I recently learned that one.
It's the same as sucking cock. You're glazing the dick. And this game is getting glazed, and they should be. I think it's an incredible game on a gameplay level. I have story concerns that like I think people just don't have, and I feel like I don't know. Did we come in here with the same expectations? Because like they're taking the middle portion of Final Fantasy VII, which is rather aimless, and their solution to it is we're gonna make it more bloated and even like more aimless potentially. Like what they do, Bradley, do you remember the robe guys in 7 that like are all congregating to a location? They're robe guys that just keep saying like reunion and eventually they meet up to like kind of the climax of the game, and they're going towards Sephiroth basically.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
They base this game. The first half of the game is just aimlessly following these guys, but the story takes itself more seriously. When it takes itself more seriously, because it's also very goofy. It's a very charming, goofy game. But when it does take itself more seriously, because of that, you kind of pay more attention to these elements. And when like the reason to follow these rogue guys is so loose, it becomes like the first half of the game is so aimless, and you're just going to charming location, and like the character development, like the character interactions are all great. These characters are better than Final Fantasy VII characters, but they're in a worse story, which is crazy. This should be unequivocally a better story than the original, but because they're adding so much, it feels more aimless, and there's like really bad tonal issues. Like, do you remember the character of Dyne by any chance? Probably not, Bradley, but
I'd have to look that one up.
Dyne is Marlene's dad, aka Barrett's daughter is Marlene, and like he adopted Marlene, and Dyne was Barrett's friend. And there's a section in Final Fantasy VII where you meet up with Dyne again, and it's really sad and tragic. They nail that section in this game. They changed some stuff, but it's really great. Literally, like 5 seconds after that section, a guy shows up in a goofy frog mech. Like the saddest thing that's happened in the game so far. And you're like, oh yeah, finally, some good emotions, because I know they can do it. You immediately run into a guy in a frog mech, and then they're just like, yeah, I know you're sad, Barrett. Anyway, let's fight this guy. And then you have a sequence where you, playing as Barrett, have to shoot down like 100 Shinra grunts riding motorcycles. And it's like, oh, we won't kill named bad guys, by the way, but we're going to have Barrett mow down these Shinra grunts in this right after the saddest moment in his life. And it's just so tonally jarring. And then like a dude shows up and he's like, hey, I brought you a sand buggy for you to travel in this desert area coming up. And then all the girls and Cait Sith are like, oh shit, a sand buggy. And Cloud's like, yeah, sorry, Barrett. Anyway, stay strong. Like they spare one line towards Barrett, and then they're just like, oh cool, buggy. Let's go adventure and be charming again. Like the game is afraid of being sad for too long, for the first half especially. Now, the second half is much better narratively. It's a lot more consistent, a lot more focused, a lot more emotional, while still having all the charm. I will say, does everyone know the main death in Final Fantasy VII, or do you somehow miss this?
Yeah.
Tyler, do you know?
I know. It's Sephiroth, right?
No. The main death, not the main antagonist.
This is like Snape killed Dumbledore, but even older.
Okay.
Oh yeah, because I didn't know that one.
Okay, never mind. I won't.
No. This is just some random bitch.
It's not.
No,
it is not some random bitch.
It's like your wife, right?
Well, my wife is Tifa, but for some people,
I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
I'm a Tifa boy myself, but you can be your wife. By the way, this game has a game-long dating sim.
Oh.
I should have brought that up with the quest. Doing the quest.
Me and Red 13.
Literally, your date could be Red 13. So
oh my god, I was joking.
Chapter 12, you go back to the Golden Saucer, and depending who you dated the most, you can get a scene with them, and then a romantic scene with them if it's one of the girls, I think. Or no, they called intimate scene, so you can get it with the boys as well. Barrett is so dreamy, by the way. That is a handsome man, I gotta say. They modeled the shit out of that guy. So all that, the game's the dating stuff. I was talking about the main death, right? I will say they kind of botched that scene. The most important scene that they had to do, they made it overly complex.
Yeah. Because it's in the cutscene in the original,
perfect.
It's very simple.
It's such a perfect cutscene in the original. They made it very complex, and like slight spoilers, the character sticks around in Cloud's mind. But a powerful thing of the original game is after that death happens, you have a missing piece. Like, in fact, in your party member menu, there's just a missing block there for the rest of the game, as I recall. So it's like the weight of that loss is felt, but then in the final cutscene, something something girl did earlier comes back, and you get a glimpse of that character praying, and it's like a really powerful moment of like the influence of that character is still live in the live stream, which is like the planet.
Mhm.
But by having that character like show up, and like if they show up more in 3 as like a memory ghost, it's gonna dilute from that moment.
It was Arkham Knight the whole time.
Well, Arkham Knight is actually really good with that, so that's a
Yeah, I know.
dishonor to Arkham Knight. So yeah, it's like
Yeah, that
all to say better characters in a slightly worse story, but it should be better characters in a better story. So that's why I can't
Yeah.
give this like a full score, because I do have more narrative problems than I think most people will.
yeah, that screams to me like people really like that character and were really
Exactly.
heartbroken, and like we want to keep them around. It's like, no, you don't. There's even like the original game director was like, it's really important that in a game about life you have death in it, because that's the end of life, so you have to represent that in some way through mechanics and things like that.
Now, ultimately, they could
yeah.
still make this work really hard, because this is something Joe won't know. There's a
Yeah.
bigger twist in Final Fantasy VII that people tend to not know.
No, I know that twist.
Okay, I didn't know that twist.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
scene where Cloud learns the truth
Yeah.
about that kind of stuff, and that would be a good moment for him to also come to reality with what happened with the lost party member. So
Yes.
that's what I'm hoping
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
They're extending it a little bit, but they're gonna like make a good climax. These
I've
narrative
played
complaints.
Crisis Core.
I see. Gotcha. There's stuff with Zack in this game that I didn't care about at all. That's another part of the plot where I was like, this didn't
you
do
didn't
it
like?
for me at all. You might like it.
Ooh.
Because everyone likes Zack who played Crisis Core, but I'm like, I like Zack for what he represents in Original 7, which is
Yeah.
something Cloud strives to be, and that's all I need Zack to be. So
Yeah.
the bosses are great. The combat's great. Sephiroth shows up a lot more in this.
Of course.
But he's great. I love Sephiroth. He's actually a very good antagonist, which was a big surprise for me going into 7. So yeah, like all like these narrative complaints I have said, I'm actually like super optimistic, because I liked Remake a lot. Rebirth was even better than that. It's almost perfect as a game. Like there's something like if they trimmed it down with the plot and like made the traversal a little better, it would have been like one of the greatest games ever made. So with this trajectory, I think Part 3 might be insanely like out of this world good, because the people who love Rebirth, like Maximilian dude, for example, a very big Final Fantasy VII fan, streamer, and he is head over heels for this game, and I'm like, I wish I didn't have my narrative squabbles, because the charm, I want to be like where you're at, because I was almost there but not quite. But I think with 3, with a more focused plot, with not having to speculate what's going to happen in the future, it's going to be great.